I tend to focus less on Australia. And one of the reasons why I tend to focus less on Australia is a couple of reasons. We tend to have a pretty good team here. We tend to be pretty well resourced relative to the other countries, but also, unfortunately, it's not always easy to get things up and running in Australia. And there's a couple of reasons which I've observed why. So what's good? Well, we have this fantastic regulatory environment for entrepreneurship, particularly around tech entrepreneurship. It's pretty easy to get a business up and running. The concept of funding is getting easier. We're doing pretty well in that space. We also value freedom and openness. If you look at a lot of the research, we have this great history of technology transfer across industries, so taking innovations that we've learned in aspects like mining and then applying in other commercial industries. And we're allowed to technophiles. We love technology, we love being first adopters. If you look at the way the world grabs new technology, Australia's right there at the forefront. We love to play with these things, use them, embed them within how we live our lives. So these are all good things. Great, pat ourselves on the back. What's not so good? Well, when you get into it, we have this considerably higher fear of failure relative to other countries. But we also have this lower rate of our perceived capabilities. We don't think that we are a global player. We don't think that we have the talent. We don't think that we can actually push this out into the world. And of course we have tall poppy syndrome. So why would you want to take a risk? Taking a risk means that you might pop your head up above a field of poppies and get cut down. And I think it's a genuine problem for us. And because of the nature of the size of our country, because of the way that we're geographically spread, we don't demand choice. We accept a duopoly as normal a lot of times. We're not asking for different alternatives. We'll happily accept what's in front of us. Now, some of this doesn't always apply. I think if you take some of the geographical and demographical view of what goes on with Australia, sure, compare that to a place like Israel, which is one of the most innovative countries in the world. Israel is a country of 8 million people, far less than us. It's beset on all sides practically by countries that are enemies that wish they didn't exist. But somehow, on a per capita basis, they have more companies that are listed on the NASDAQ than any other country around the world. So what's going on there? Well, there's some embedded societal reasons which I think can fuel that, and there's some good studies that have been done on that. One of them is that because of the size of who they are, they've had to rely on importing and exporting their culture in a way that most other countries don't do. So they want to bring in new talent, they want to make sure they get the very best. They have a culture that wants that, but they also want to make sure that they prove themselves and export that as aggressively, as powerfully as possible. Another big factor which we obviously don't want to compete with is the fact that they have compulsory military service. And so when you are of age in Israel, which I think is around 18, you get pushed into a couple of years of compulsory military service where at a very young age, you're going to be put in charge of a bunch of younger kids than you, and they're asked to do this at a relatively young age. And so they have to improvise because it's not a well-resourced military service, so they have to think on their feet a lot. They have to try and develop new ways of doing things because they're starved for the right amount of materials that they need. And so when you have that and then you're pushed into the real world and asked to do something for a job, your appetite for risk is far different than someone who's just been lazing around on the beach like we do. A lot of this we can't fight. It's embedded, deeply difficult to move cultural aspects which we can't combat easily, but we have to recognise them and figure out how we might be able to move forward incrementally, bit by bit. So the right culture is obviously fundamental to innovation. So this is just what I want to leave you with here. Some 4 points which I think can help us in this journey. First is building this culture of openness and contribution, the open source creativity that I was talking about before, leading from the top down, having a leadership group that really asks and wants contribution from all of the people within its organisation and really asks them to try that a little bit more. Celebrating entrepreneurship and encouraging community participation. So really making heroes out of the people that do these efforts, that take these risks, that think that failure might be something that wouldn't stop them, and making sure that you listen to the users, the customers that you have, the people around you that might be able to provide fuel for the innovation that you want to perform. Celebrate this failure, and I know that's difficult, but at the very least, don't discourage people from doing things just because they failed. Ask them to figure out what went wrong. Ask them to take the learnings that they got out of that and move on to the next thing. What will you do now that you know this? And finally, this is something, again, that's important to me, it's important to Google, but it's this idea of supporting science, technology, engineering, and maths. Innovation doesn't always just have to be the high-level creativity. It has to come from the people that are writing the code, the people that are testing the hypotheses, the people that are doing the science, technology, engineering, and maths. And one of the big things I think that's important is putting code on the curriculum. We need language about how our world operates, that every kid should know and understand and figure out how they can apply it in the future. And so with that, I thank you for your time, and hope you've enjoyed your meals. You're going to be hearing from Neil very shortly.